Gentlemen, 2016 is pretty much coming to an end. We're on our final breath. Now, 2016 has been a very interesting year, whether you want to admit it or not. Some things were good, some things were great, some things were disappointing, some things were just borderline atrocious to the point of where it wants you to just like throw that shit up like you're in The Exorcist. But that's pretty much what 2016 was. That's the year in movies. Now, I was debating with myself whether I wanted to do this list because, let's be real here, there's been a lot of like negativity things recently in the news, or whatever, whether it be deaths, politics, or even taxes. You know, these things all kind of just tend to weigh down on people. So I was wondering to myself, do I really want to add more negativity by talking about these shitty type of films, or at least disappointing for the most part? Now, these films are going to run the range from disappointing to just kind of lackluster to just leaving me with no emotion in the movie theater whatsoever. Now, people are going to be putting 10, I'm putting 15. Why? Because I can. And if you have a problem with this list, well, you can make your own, and then we can all complain together. So let's do this list, right? So here it is. Some people might be surprised, but number 15 is Jason Bourne. Now, Jason Bourne, to me, it's not necessarily a bad movie, and by far it's the best movie on the list, which is pretty much why it's at 15. The problem with while watching Jason Bourne is just that it just felt like it was really going nowhere. Other than that cool punch towards the beginning of the film, which they constantly kept on doing to advertise this shit, there was really nothing much, pretty much, to talk about Jason Bourne. I just felt like Bourne was just going on standby mode, and all he was doing is just walking around in a very big open world. That's pretty much it. And by the time the movie actually does end, they want you to kind of give them an applause, which is kind of really stupid because what are you going to applaud? The fact that he did a shotgun from a car or that cool Las Vegas car chase? Because other than that, this movie was pretty fucking boring and they really had no direction to go at all. They constantly kept on trying to make Bourne seem like he was relevant in today's time, but in retrospect, you just realize that, damn, Damon's movie is so bad, I'd rather have Aaron Cross back. But that's just the simple truth. And now we can move on to number 14. Number 14 is pretty much Ghostbusters. Now, look, some people are really going to get upset with this one, but Ghostbusters just was just there. I felt like it didn't really do anything much for the most part, but the reason why I kind of put it even less is just that I just felt like they tried too hard to be something new, but then try to be something old, and then it doesn't have a good enough tone to it. At least Bourne knew what it was supposed to be. It just wasn't good as to what they were trying to do. But this had a weird mesh of a tone to the point where it didn't know really where it was going to begin with. Now, it had nothing to do with women, because even if it was dudes in this movie, the movie still would have been just a very lackluster kind of bland fest with decent enough Scooby-Doo, you know, Monsters Unleashed special effects. So whether you like it or not, this movie's not getting a sequel. Anyways, number 13 is pretty much the McCann Resurrection. Now, McCann Resurrection was a movie where I pretty much wanted to just be like, I'm done with Jason Statham. I'm not a fan of this guy because honestly, he was probably not the worst part of this movie, but I felt like he wasn't really trying. He was just going through the Jason Statham motions. And when Tommy Lee Jones is the most energetic thing about your movie, then that's pretty much saying something just in general. Now, overall, I thought the movie served this purpose, which is a dumb action film, but sometimes this was during the time of August where I was just kind of annoyed of just kind of throwaway films. And I didn't really want to see the McCann Resurrection. And yes, Jessica Alba looked hot, but I'd rather see her ass cheeks in that other movie with Paul Walker. But that's just my thought. Now let's move on to the next one. Pretty much Independence Day Resurgence. I didn't hate this movie as much as some people did, but believe it or not, then I watched it over, then I was just like, yeah, this movie's pretty fucking brutal. I could probably watch it once, but then once it's kind of over, you just realize, yeah, this is kind of a mess. Cool sci-fi looks, but then there's a lot of plot holes and things that don't really make sense, and then you just kind of realize these niggas are literally saying they want a sequel. Do they deserve one? I don't think so. And don't test your luck. You guys barely got over it with a second one, so don't test your luck for a third one, and I don't think it's going to happen. Pretty much the next one, number 11, is Angry Birds. Loud, noisy, obnoxious. I didn't really like this movie at all. Some people thought it was going to be... This looked like it was going to be the cream of the crop when it came to video game movies. And I was literally saying to myself, and I barely say this for films, but I wanted this shit to bomb. Because I was just like, if any film is going to be... Or any video game movie that's going to succeed and be the standard bearer, I'd rather it be a Warcraft or Ratchet & Clank or Assassin's Creed. Unfortunately, it wasn't, but I would have preferred if it be one of those three and not Angry Birds, because that just looked like it was very annoying. Yes, the voice acting is pretty decent enough, but I just didn't really care for this. This just kind of irked me because it was just loud, and that makes me sound old, but whatever. Number 10, Urge. Now, a lot of people may not know about Urge, but Urge is pretty much with Pierce Brosnan, right? And Justin Chatwin from Shameless, and your favorite, you know, guilty pleasure movie, Dragon Ball Evolution, I'm sure. But this movie pretty much was like Far Cry mixed with like, you know, drugs and whatnot, and it had a cool premise about, you know, taking like leaps of faith or whatever it may be, and, you know, the devil Pierce Brosnan, he's great. But boy, does this movie does not do anything when it comes to like character development or anything. It just feels like Pierce Brosnan's having fun and everybody else is just looking very, very miserable. But other than that, the premise is interesting, but it doesn't go beyond the premise. You could almost even throw IT out there with also Pierce Brosnan. Cool premise, but it just kind of goes into the cliche route and there's nothing more really to tell. Number 9 is pretty much Mother's Day. Now, what can we say except rest in peace Gary Marshall, but fuck, you made a shitty ass movie. This Mother's Day movie is just pretty much what you typically get from Valentine's Day to New Year's Eve to any kind of intertwining story that you kind of get on these cheap-ass holiday budgeted movies that is pretty much a high-budgeted, you know, Hallmark film. That's pretty much what you're getting. Mother's Day is pretty much nothing. You get a whole bunch of people circle jerking each other inside this big, you know, cameo fuckfest. And that's pretty much it. Gary Marshall, you know, has all these buddies and friends and Hector Alonso, whatever. But you don't really get anything here because the movie's not funny. It's kind of heartwarming, I guess, if you take your mom. But then when I actually did take my mom to see this shit, she actually said, "Can we leave?" And I was just like, that is the best thing you've ever said to me. Thank you, Mom. But that's just my thought just to begin with. Number 8 is Criminal. Now, this movie was just stupid. It was just dumb to a T. There's nothing that makes sense in here. There's weird love triangle, or love things, I guess you say a love triangle, with Kevin Costner, Ryan Reynolds, and then Gal Gadot. Then you got, you know, Gary Oldman just like yelling, whatever, yeah. Kevin Costner trying to be the badass action hero, old guy, which doesn't work. You have a chip, you have Tommy Lee Jones once again in this movie. It's just like, Ryan Reynolds in here for like 5 minutes. I don't know. There's not even really anything to say. It's just a dumb action movie. Kevin Costner as the badass action hero lead. Yeah, just moving on. Number 7 is Cell. Cell was an interesting movie on paper. Cell was an interesting movie in a book. Cell was a shitty movie on screen. Now, this movie is just kind of slow, and it has Costner and Sam Jackson reunited from 1408, and they were great in 1408. I even just rewatched it. It's a pretty great film. And this movie, Cusack and even Sam Jackson himself, even though he's still good, they're just going on, you know, completely drive-by mode. They're not even doing anything here. The premise is cool with all the cell phones, because especially when you look at today's technology, people use, you know, cell phones all the time. We're always on them. So a zombie apocalypse, so to speak, you know, kind of happening because of the cell phone use. That sounds cool, but they don't acknowledge or do anything and do constant exposition and just a shitty ending to begin with, and nothing really moving the plot forward. You just kind of are left with a very cool premise, just like Urge, but a movie does not really execute it at all, and just kind of lets down their pretty solid actors, which is Cusack and Sam Jackson. That's it. 6 is The Fifth Wave. I was going to do an ironic thing, put it 5, but now I decided no. Fifth Wave, look, this movie is a young adult novel that thought it was getting a sequel. Chloe Grace Moretz just pretty much doing nothing. Liev Schreiber, which is kind of doing the best performance of the entire movie, and pretty much a whole bunch of other actors that are just kind of collecting their check. The Fifth Wave, which is pretty much doesn't make any sense because, as I said this before in a review, if this was a alien invasion, the aliens would have just attacked on wave 1. They wouldn't be like 5 fucking steps, you know, the 8-step program to like kill, you know, humans, you know. It wouldn't be that. It would be like, destroy all humans, wave 1. That's it. It made no sense to me. And it just tried to do the lovey-dovey thing. And 5 is Late in America / Dance Camp / any fucking YouTube Red movie this year. That is the simple truth. Now, Late in America sucks. If you want to see my review, you can look that up. That's pretty good. If you want to see my Dance Camp review, you can look that one up too. But the thing about these movies is just that these YouTube stars, I don't know if they get acting experience or they just throw them inside of these things, but they try to make their personalities come through on screen, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. Now, not every YouTube Red movie sucks. I actually constantly praise the Superwoman documentary. I thought that was actually pretty good. But Late in America is shit. Fucking Dance Camp is shit. I didn't see Laser Tag or Laser Team, whatever it may be. But I'll just throw that on the list too because it's most likely shit. But look, this is pretty much a cliche 90s movie, but without any of the like actual good jokes and just the gross out humor for Late in America. As for Dance Camp, it's just a very bland attempt at like Step Up or an American Pie movie Band Camp, which kind of goes back to what Late in America actually is. So there it is. Let's go on to number 4. Number 4 is The Force. The first movie of the year is also probably one of the movies that I decided that this film is going to be very close to the top of the worst. That is by far the worst. The Force is pretty much a movie where you have, it takes place in Japan, and for some reason we actually decided to kind of have the only 2 white people in Japan be the leads, which doesn't make any sense. The movie essentially kind of just goes in circles by the time it does end, and actually makes no sense by the time it actually does come to a conclusion. And then that's all you can really say about it. I didn't really necessarily hate this movie, but the biggest sin a movie can do is bore the shit out of me, and that's what The Force really did. Also, it had probably one of the lamest fucking titles I've ever seen, ever. The Forest. That's it. When you fall asleep in The Forest, that's just kind of like, okay, come on. The best actor by far is a guy that doesn't even get that much to do, which is the fucking, you know, the Japanese guy. Or even, you know, the Lady Gaga's ex. But either way, let's go to the next one. Norman of the North is 3. Now, Norman of the North, what can you say? Rob Schneider doing a shitty job at his animated career. You know, you have a pretty decent enough, talented, you know, voice cast, but you have shitty animation that looks like it was like right out of a cheap Burger King commercial. And you have, you know, Norman of the North, which is just painful inducing. Don't ask me to, you know, relive the plot because I don't know what the fuck the plot was. I was not interested enough to the end of this movie. I criticized this movie since day one, and I don't really give a fuck about it, honestly. It's just like a shitty version of like Madagascar on ice. Moving on. Number 2 is 9 Lives. Now, I don't know who had Kevin Spacey's balls in a cuckold or whoever actually got Kevin Spacey the pictures actually fucking a cat, but for some reason, Kevin Spacey actually signed up for this. Now, I don't see Kevin Spacey outside my window asking for change or on the subway, you know, asking for like $1 or whatever it may be, so I don't know what exactly he signed up for, you know, on this movie. He's got, you know, his show, he's got awards, he's got nominations, he's doing, you know, theater, he's doing all this, and he's collecting that Call of Duty paycheck. He's like, what are you doing here? Because this made no sense. And every time I like watch this movie, because I just watched it recently, I'm wondering to myself, this guy looks like he's on the verge of suicide. I don't know what it is. 9 lives, and I literally would want to split my wrist in each and every one of them. That's legitimately the truth. There's nothing really to say here. You get Jennifer Garner doing what she does best, which is being in mediocre films, and that's pretty much it. Kelly Ripa's cuckolded husband, I said before. There's nothing really to talk about. That's number 2. Number 1, this was the tie. This is going to be the deal breaker. But number 1 is Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad is number 1. No, I'm fucking with you. I know everybody just lost their mind if you're actually watching the video. I'm talking about 50 Shades of Black. I probably skipped you for a second. 50 Shades of Black is by far the worst movie of this year. Now, you're probably wondering, well, why did I put 50 Shades of Black? Now, this was difficult. I was deciding between 9 Lives and 50 Shades of Black, but I remembered while watching 50 Shades of Black, and if you've seen it, you might know what I'm talking about, where Marlon Wayans, I believe it is, when he whips out his nuts, or somebody whips out his nuts in the movie, or whatever it may be, that was literally the tipping point, legitimately, where I decided, you know, fuck this. This is number 1. This is the worst movie of the year. Not only was this movie not funny, a little bit racist, and that's kind of what these porn parodies tend to do. Not porn parodies. Well, these porn parodies are a lot more funny than this. I got that on my brain. What I was trying to say is these parodies, just in general, they don't tend to be very funny. They tend to be racist. They tend to be homophobic. They tend to be cool, as they think. But really, they just don't really do anything more than just kind of insult themselves, you know? Because that's the problem. I feel like a lot of people don't really, you tend to kind of wonder this. It'd be like, when exactly is self-aware, when is exactly does self-aware become self-critical? You know, that's exactly what it pretty much is. They're self-aware, their movie's shitty, but then that doesn't exactly like stop them from being like, you know, deflected from the negativity reviews. This movie's shit across the board, and it's a little bit boring. For a comedy to be boring, you got a problem, especially a parody to be boring. I've seen bad parodies, but none of them are like boring per se. They're shitty, but they're just bad. But that's my worst list. Is your shit kind of similar to mine, or is mine just kind of completely atrocious? Let me know, comment, subscribe, and like. Share this video if you can, because that would actually be pretty good. I'm Chris Smith, and this might be the last time we see each other in this year. Signing out.